welcome to Served. Thank you to Chase for having us. It is still crazy to us that we get to do live shows and anyone cares. So thank you all for being here. Show of hands, has anyone seen any good tennis recently? Yeah, it tends to happen this time of year. How about a quick round of applause for producer Mike on my far left. We have my partner in crime, one of the best tennis journalists of all time, and he works on a little show called 60 Minutes as well, Jon Wertheim. If you care about tennis enough to be at this show, you should also care enough to read his mailbag every week. It is the best digestion of what's happening in tennis week after week. So let's get to it, JW. A couple days into the U.S. Open, what has stood out? What should we be paying attention to?
Oh man, it doesn't sound like a hard question to start with, but
we'll get tougher. We're nice. I'm in a good mood.
It's day 3, kind of, sort of. It's really day 10 because the U.S. Open has become a 3-week event. I don't know if anyone was out there last week. Tip for next year: free admission
for Fan Week,
which is great for Fan Week. You know what? People really like tennis. Roger Federer, unfortunately, is retired. Serena Williams, unfortunately, is retired.
I mean, now he retires, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly. You wish he could have hung on.
He could have saved me some angst and done it earlier.
What? Rafa Nadal not here either. And yet, tennis soaring, record crowds. I mean, the line for a burrito is 30 deep out there. People really like tennis.
The cost of a burrito is about $30 too.
Supply meets demand at very extreme points sometimes at the U.S. Open, but the fact that there is demand is a good sign. Tennis, kind of surprisingly, bit of an upset. Tennis is doing great, even though we've lost these 3 titans of the sport.
Yeah, I think I'll tell you, for those of you who have listened to our show, I'll tell you when I think I'm right. Hopefully you know that I'll also tell you when I'm wrong. I thought there was going to be a vacuum of interest in tennis. You lose names like Federer, Serena. We're going to lose Rafa sooner rather than later. Novak might play till he's 55. He's like some sort of cyborg. So Venus as well hasn't officially retired, but we're seeing less and less of her. That generally means, the sport will suffer at scale, right? It's not what happened. To give you some context, so there are Major League Baseball teams that draw 800,000 fans per season. Fan Week, 250,000 fans last week. Most of the events were free. For $30, you could see Alcaraz and Djokovic share the same court on a Wednesday, along with guys like McEnroe, Agassi, et cetera, et cetera. So props for doing that. We need to create a friendly handshake on the way into tennis before we can charge you $32 for a cocktail,
Good cocktail.
It's a good cocktail. One of the things that stood out just the first 2 days, and then we'll invite our special guest, who I'm so excited about this show for many reasons, but not least of which is a good friend of mine is going to join us. I think a lot gets made early on, and I hear the commentary, and it's like, Sinner loses a set. What does that mean for the tournament? Alcaraz drops a set. Are we worried? No, we're not worried at all. That happens. You're finding your pacing. There's no more intimidating court in tennis than a night session at Ash. Jannik Sinner had never won a match on that stadium court until yesterday. That doesn't worry me. I don't put a lot of stock in if someone wins 2-2-2 or 4-4-4. You're getting your work done. You survive. You advance. I have an exception to my own rule.
What's up?
When you've won 4 Grand Slams and you've been off for a while, and then you come back out and you beat someone who's top 10 in the world 3-2, statement win gets thrown around too much, right? This person had a statement win first round. The locker room's talking about it. The locker room's probably not talking about it. We're probably focused on what we want to do. When someone named Naomi Osaka comes out and beats a top 10 person with all the eyeballs on her, you couldn't find a seat. You tried. You were there.
Yeah. It was packed.
Yeah, you were there with your wife Rose. Have you ever gotten a kiss from a rose?
I never have.
You never have. Okay.
Segue.
Anyways, but listen, when all the hype is there, there's the clothing, there's the hype around it. Not a lot of form coming in, and she goes out and puts that sort of performance together, that's a statement win. That was the match of the first 2 days, not because of drama, not because of heat, not because of everything else, just because we know what Naomi can be. I've been saying for a while, I think she's going to win big again at some point. Now, can she put 3 or 4 matches together? That has been the question throughout this year. So far, the answer has been no more than it's been yes. But that was my takeaway, that performance from Naomi Osaka, when you're watching someone who could potentially turn it, and you know that when she gets to the latter stages of a Grand Slam, we've seen what she does. She's 4 for 4 when she's been in the semis so far in her career. I'm excited about our guest. Our first guest that is not a pro tennis player, an agent of a tennis player, or generally involved day to day in tennis. Seal, are you around anywhere? Can you come and join us?
We'll slide down some.
How are you, brother?
Good to see you. So,
how is everyone? Yeah?
So
best time of the year, right?
It is the best time of the year. So I'm going to read a response that I got from this man to my left, who is amongst the most passionate tennis supporters on earth of anyone that I have ever met. This is a response that he sent me yesterday. I think it was a couple of things, maybe a little bit of stuff on his mind, but more so that McDonald is moving too well off both sides for Jannik to hit through him. Second game of the second set was huge. Jannik started to put some air under it, much heavier ball. Mackenzie doesn't like it up there, and it took him out of his rhythm. That's my novice observation anyway. My question was, how you doing? Welcome. Thank you for coming to the show.
Great to be here. Great to be here.
Yeah, it was funny early on, and we started the show in February, and I don't know, we didn't know that it would work, but you were our first fan of the show. I think I get a text, and it blew my mind. Social Sophie, I think she's around here somewhere. She freaked out. I don't, she kind of handles our social stuff. She's like, Seal followed us. Talk to us about your love affair for the game of tennis. How intense are you about it? You play all the time. You watch all the time. Why tennis?
Well, first of all, I'm a huge fan of you, Andy. I watched you as a player. I loved watching you as a player, and I love listening to you and watching you as a podcaster. Is that what you
I don't know.
I don't know what. Because I think if you want common sense, logic, and straight talk, and a deep insight into the game, then you got to look no further than Served with Andy Roddick.
It's nice of you,
and of course you, John. But my love of tennis, where did that start? Well, I was born in '63. My dad was really passionate about tennis, but of course tennis wasn't really available to us to play as kids, growing up in a working class part of London. But my dad loved tennis. He watched it all the time. Every time Wimbledon would come on, we would watch it. And of course, I grew up in the era of Borg and McEnroe and watching those guys play. I always loved it, and then sort of hacked around when I was older, but only really started taking lessons about 4.5 to 5 years ago. And that's when I fell deeply in love with the game of tennis, because, of course, it is not as it seems on TV. But,
how does it seem on TV?
Well, on TV, it seems like it's a very physical game, which it is, and it seems, like see ball, hit ball. How difficult can that be? I mean, obviously these guys are better at it than us normal folks, but how difficult can it be? And stepping onto the tennis court, I realized quickly that it was perhaps the most counterintuitive thing I have ever done in my life. All of the tools that I have used in life to get me this far, none of those tools, 99% of those tools don't work with tennis. Tennis is above many other things. It's about surrender and trust. And I kind of think about tennis as an allegory for life. I always tell people, when I step onto the tennis court, it's like I see all my daily challenges and issues mapped out across the tennis court, and I have an opportunity to resolve them. So that's why I've kind of fallen in love with tennis.
Yeah, the text you sent me, I play tennis because when I step on the court, I see my life challenges and problems mapped out in front of me. Tennis gives me the chance to work through them. I feel the same way, except when I'm working through them, I also see my life's problems on the other side of the net. And they
oh, I see those too.
They have different names, like Novak and Roger and Rafa and whoever else is there. So you've talked about the differences, what doesn't work. But there are techniques, right? You learn a new craft. You have to, I remember you telling me something, and the gist of it was basically like, you were talking about singing, and less is more, and the greats understand how to get to efficiency.
Yeah.
And I think it was so profound, because if I do, clinics or work on something with someone, there's a lot of wasted motion, and a lot of it comes from enthusiasm or passion or all of these things. And it's like, we need to take a breath. We need quiet intensity, soft intensity with everything, right? Your feet need to move, but they don't slam, unless you absolutely have to slam it to break back. But you, and hopefully, I remember this correctly, how I wrote it down, but talk between like your lifelong goal for efficiency with your voice versus how that translates or doesn't translate to tennis. Because you recognize what that is, and you know what that process is, but it might not present itself on a tennis court.
Well, I mean, this is going to probably sound strange to a lot of you, but there are so many similarities between what I do, singing or performing, and tennis. I mean, they are so similar in many ways. And it should come as no surprise to you that a lot of tennis players actually are musicians, and vice versa. A lot of musicians are drawn to tennis. So if we take singing, for example, there's an old saying, I think it was coined by the great Seth Riggs, who was a singing coach. He said that technique is only there to stop the body from interfering with the soul's free expression. So once again, technique is only there to stop the body from interfering with the soul's free expression. Well, what does that mean? As a singer, if I have a gig coming up, or like a big pressure gig, in the near future, I'll work with a vocal coach, and we'll work on technique. I'll do scales, lengthening and shortening of the vocal cords, notes relative to position in the vocal cords, vowel shapes, R becomes O, the higher you go, air becomes E, etc. Technique, 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 technique. I'll work day in and day out. Now, when I get to the microphone on that day to perform, you want to know what the last thing on my brain is?
Technique.
Technique.
Yeah.
That's the last thing I'm thinking of. In fact, the thing that I'm thinking of the most, my primary purpose right then, is I am trying to let go. I'm trying to surrender, right? I'm trying to surrender and trust, let go and trust that all of the work that I've done prior, all of the technique, all of the hours, if I let go, they will just happen automatically. And then my soul will now start to sing. So if you watch tennis players, for example, how does that translate? Well, I am willing to bet that if a tennis player is on the court during a high-pressure match and they are thinking about technique at that point, it's over. And if you watch tennis players, they all do this thing with Roger used to go, spin his racket, or if you watch one of the tennis players waiting to receive serve, they're kind of doing that. And essentially what they're trying to do is let go. They're trying to be loose because they know their path to being in the zone, to having a good performance, is letting go. Because if they can do that, which requires a great degree of trust, if they can do that, all the stuff that they've learned before will just start to happen naturally.
Yeah.
So they're very similar.
I think what you're touching on is fantastic, because I don't deal in absolutes very often, and it is a certainty that if I'm in the middle of a match and it's in the second set and I'm thinking about like a swing path on a backhand, right? You're not thinking about then you're actually not thinking about what you need to do to actually impose your will or impose your game or impose a certain strategy. If all of your problem solving is in the mirror, you're not going to beat the best players on earth. And it's funny because you're talking about those like little ticks, and I'm starting to like get sweaty just thinking about it. I mean, we do them. I don't even know that we realize that's kind of the goal of them. But it's funny, as you're walking through it, I'm going, yeah, that makes total sense. Like anytime that I knew that like I was thinking about a thing or a technical flaw or whatever, listen, practices for muscle memory, practices to fix, practices to work, and then I think once you get out there, and this is like the mental gymnastics. Like trust falling is great. You think about how to take what you have. Maybe it's imperfect on that day. Maybe you haven't quite solved for everything, but you have to take it and make yourself the most effective version of what you have. I'm sure there are nights when your voice is perfect, and I'm sure
it's never perfect.
And I'm sure, yeah, you suck. Actually, you're pretty bad.
But you know, it's funny because you're right. It's never perfect, but it's with a bit of luck, it's perfectly imperfect.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense. Does that make any sense?
I think it makes total sense. Like I mean, I'll say forever that I wear this with pride. I wasn't a great like ball striker. But I was like really good at playing pretty bad tennis most of the time, right? Like seriously, like it's like I'm going to take what I got, and hopefully I can figure out a way to drag you into the gutter with me. And
you played pretty bad tennis all the way to the U.S. Open Championship, right?
That was perfectly imperfect. I think is the thing. So who do you watch? Who causes emotion in your heart? Who do you love watching?
As far as tennis players?
Yeah.
Who do I watch? Oh, God, you see, the great thing about today is that you have such variety both in the men's and women's game. And tennis is it's at a level now which is just breathtaking. They're not really athletes, they're superhuman. If you look at the way that the game has evolved, it's insanity what they're doing, the way that they're moving. So there are a lot of great players to watch. Of course, there's my favorite and someone I'm proud to call my friend is Jan Sinner. He's great to watch because he is his natural ability and ball striking and just approach to tennis is everything. I mean, if you can learn so much, not just about tennis, but about life from him as an athlete, not just as a tennis player. When I think of him, I think balance, which is the thing that I try to achieve most in my life, balance. And he's one of the most balanced individuals you will see in that his game, yes, but off the court, and the way that his philosophical approach to tennis is extremely balanced. You know, I always say that the thing that separates, on any given day, anyone in the top 100 can beat the #1 player in the world. I really believe that. But the thing that separates the likes of Alcaraz, or the people before them, the Federers, the Nadals, is what's between here, and they can focus longer, across 3 or 5 sets than any of the other guys, and they can do it on a consistent basis. And you'll generally find that they are balanced, not just in tennis, but in their whole setup, that the team that they have around them, their ability to take the losses with the wins and look at them all in perspective. And so Sinner's the best at that, but so I enjoy watching him. On the women's side, there are a bunch. I like watching Paolini because of
That's cool.
the challenges that she has overcome, And by the way, she's, in tennis terms, she's no spring chicken, right? But all of a sudden, she's winning with the same tools that she's had, prior to turning 27. Something happened. She got a win, and it changed here. And so I like watching her. Like, it's not so much just her game; it's her belief in her game that is so impressive. Because again, it's an allegory for life. It's showing her transcend those things which have previously held her back, and it hasn't really been her tennis. Clearly, it's been here. So I like watching her. There are a bunch. I mean, of course, as I mentioned Alcaraz, but I like watching Musetti, Berrettini. I like watching Medvedev because he's so unorthodox. I think it was Mary Jo that said something like Medvedev's forehand is like a series of mistakes that come together at one come together at one glorious moment at contact point, and it just shows that there are no sure there is a basic fundamental language of tennis, but tennis is a language like everything, every other language. There are many dialects. And so it's just fascinating to watch all of these beautiful dialects. And if you know what to look for, you'll see that the same fundamental things are always present. They're in place. But it's fun watching the way that all of these different illustrious players get there with their own version.
I write a kind of stream of notes, because I want the conversation to go where it's going to go, not the way that I thought it was going to go 2 hours ago. Hopefully, that makes for a good show. And they all do it differently, all in capital letters. And I was going to ask you to kind of draw a parallel to what you do, because I've been in the locker room about to play big matches against the consensus 3 best male players of all time. And that prep, watching what they do, it's all intimidating in its own way. Like Roger, all of a sudden, it's as if he's like waiting to go to brunch. Like he's just this calm. He walks in, hey, how you doing? Great. Oh God, you should like the fact that you're so laid back is intimidating. I don't like that. And then all of a sudden, it's like go time. It's like a hair flip, put it on, and then it's like I'm like fed. I'm like I don't like that. But then it's like the other thing I don't like is like Rafa's like chewing through nails on for like 4 hours before you play, and he's like doing sprints across, and he's doing like high knees, and I'm like, well, I don't like that either. And then Novak comes in and he's stoic and he says his one thing, and then he's kind of like a little, he's calm, but he's also like he needs things to be like in the perfect place, and it's like this angsty kind of thing. And I didn't like that either. Like there were no good options, but we have the 3 consensus greatest of all time. They couldn't be more different in the way that they play, in the way that they process, in the way that they get to the end goal. The only common ground is the place they usually ended up. Now, from where you sit, is there a consistency in process amongst the great singers, the people that you idolize, or is it all over the place?
Are you asking? I think you're asking is there a like what is my process? What's my preparation? And do I see that present in a lot of the people?
Is it as different? We have 3 people who are the best of all time. There's like 0 common ground for how they actually get to the common goal, right? And it's just so fragmented. Is that common, or are there things that are non-negotiables for what you do?
Well, you could say that there is 0 common ground, and for the most part, I think that is right, except for if you kind of know what to look for, and it's the same with all singers and great singers. If you know what to look for, there are these fundamental characteristics that are present. It is a belief, which comes from, I don't know where that comes from. I mean, I guess it depends on how you're raised, or it can come from anywhere. But there is a trust. There is an absolute trust. Like deep within them, there is a trust. And the reason why that word trust is so important is because in order to put forth a great performance, in order to have a great show, in order to play a great game, you have to let go. You have to surrender. You have to. You cannot control. The best shows or the best performances I've ever had are not when my voice has been in tip-top condition, which it rarely is, but it is when I have just let go, when I have surrendered and trusted. And you have to put the work in before that in order to have that trust. But if you can just let go, and I see that with the players, the ones, and you hear them talk about it, like you talk to Michael Jordan after a great performance, or Roger Federer after a great performance, or Andy Roddick after a great performance, and they'll say, well, what was it like? And they go, oh, I don't know, I just couldn't miss.
By the way, I've never said that. Just so we're clear, those words have never come out of my mouth. Not a single moment.
He's felt that. No. He's had those days.
True.
He's had those days where the ball was that big, and you just couldn't miss. It's called being in the zone, I guess. And that being in the zone is another way of surrendering and letting go. So I do see that common thing, that belief. Among the great players that we're talking about.
Let me ask you something adjacent to that. First, I want to apologize for the superficial sports talk. We'll try to be a little deeper in our answers. Who's your upset pick? No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
I was listening to Andy off camera, and you were talking about on the
Osaka.
Osaka.
Right.
I think that she's due. And if I had to pick someone, I would.
Right,
that would blow the roof off.
That was a joke,
tennis.
though. I want to ask you something. Going back to what you said before, which is one thing that strikes me about tennis is there are no home games, right? I mean, this is like a music festival that's passing through New York, but it's not like you go to Yankee Stadium. Not dissimilar to what you do, and I'm curious what impact.
Dissimilar.
No, you're traveling
similar.
around. There's no home. You don't go to an office either, right? You don't have a. You're traveling around. You're working everywhere. And I am curious what the impact of this itinerant lifestyle of traveling the globe performing. What impact does travel have on performance? These are not like
what physically or
yeah,
emotionally.
Dealer's choice.
Or
yeah, all.
What impact does it have? Well, it's I used to date a tennis player many moons ago.
Breaking news? Anyone? Like, we're do I ask a weird follow up when he drove all the way here? Like,
say more.
And I used to joke. She was the only person I'd met with a busier schedule than mine. I mean, there were just we barely.
Don't tell us her name. Tell us what her name rhymes with.
Fierce.
Oh, okay. I got it. Dealer's choice. You all figure it out. Got it.
And we hardly saw each other, because of this. So I say that to say this, that the schedule of a professional tennis player is not easy. I mean, it's pretty tough. What effect does that have on me as a singer? The traveling, the grueling schedule. Well, it's an interesting question because the voice is unlike. Yes, it is physical, but it's also subject to emotion. It's also subject to weather change. It's also subject to fatigue. It's subject to what side of the bed you woke up on in the morning, to food, what you eat, especially if you're like me, as someone who has suffered in the past from acid reflux. So a grueling schedule can be pretty. Well, just that, it can be grueling. So, but it's like anything else. I've learned over the years to manage that, to figure out how to best take care of my voice, and I'm sure the tennis players do exactly the same thing. And I think perspective has a lot to do with it. I'm just a kind of poor working class kid from, you know, the northwest London who was never going to amount to anything. And now I'm on the kind of back nine, so to speak, of a really incredible career. And so I never lose sight of that. I never lose sight of the fact that I'm in an extremely rare and privileged position. And if you had said to me, you know, when I was 6 years old, hey, look, Seal, you know, in the future...
Did people call you Seal when you were 6?
They called me a lot of other things. Seal wasn't one of them.
We need more one name
that's a flex. Like, one name when you have a lot of hit records is one thing. One name when you're 6 is a different type of flex.
But, you know, if they'd come to me and said, like, you know, at some point in your life, you're going to be singing to thousands of people, and like people are going to know your music all over the world, and yada yada yada, and you know, but the schedule is going to be like you're going to have to sort of you know, spend most of your life on tour buses and in aircrafts. I'd have been like, when can I do it now? So you know, it's like, you know, I have no cause for complaint at all.
Did you have like a team that was a part of, you know, that rise with you?
A team.
Yeah, I mean, like the way tennis players have a team that they rely on.
Absolutely, and you know, I always another thing I always say is that, you know, no matter whose name is on the marquee, you know, whether it's, you know, Seal, Sting, you know, whoever, right? You can bet your last dollar that there is a whole team of people that were instrumental in getting that person to where they are. It doesn't matter whose name is on the marquee. Team is everything. And to that, I say that doing what we do, singing, making music, it is a collaborative process. Tennis is the same. If you look, you know, you talked about the commonalities between the top tennis players. I guarantee you, if you pick any one of them, like whether it's like, you know, whether it was Sampras, Agassi, now Novak, you know, Rafa, Roger, now Sinner, and Alcaraz. Those ones that have dominated, and even on the women's side, you know, who is kind of, you know, well, not dominating, but she's definitely up there now, is Iga.
She's been dominant, by the way. 5 slams by the time you're 22 is like, yeah.
Well, I'm, you know, consistently doing that. Look closer and look at the team. They've all got solid teams. And I'm not just talking about the physio, the trainer, and, you know, the coach. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the team as a whole, family members, the very small group of close friends that provide that balance that I'm talking about. The balance is essential. It's absolutely vital for them to have that. And balance meaning that it cannot always be about tennis. It has to be about life. And all of the ones that dominate, and when they don't have that team, if there's any hitch in that team, that supportive team, it's generally reflected by their rankings and their win-lose tallies.
Sometimes you have, you know, I play golf because I can divorce myself from being a dentist. It sounds like that is not the case with your passion for tennis. There's a real overlap between your day jobs. Say more about how the music impacts the tennis and the tennis impacts the music.
Well, they're the same thing. You know, I play tennis every day. If you know, I hit every day.
Like actually every day.
Every day, like you know, well, first of all, as I mentioned before, I started taking lessons about 4.5, 5 years ago, and that's when I really fell in love with it, because it was, again, it was the single most counterintuitive thing I've ever done, and it intrigued me. And so, if you know, when I'm touring, the tour manager has but one main job, and it is to make sure that every city we play in, there's a club and a pro for me to hit with, because that's how I get the balance to do what I'm doing.
Is it like a form of therapy for you, where you
Absolutely.
get it? Yeah,
it's total therapy, and it's you know, it's the one thing where when I'm doing it, I don't think of anything else. I don't think of music. And for a musician, that's big. You know, there is always music and stuff that I got to do going around in my head. You know, this may just sound like things moving around to you, but to me, it's a rhythm. And that can get really tiring sometimes, you know, like always having music in your head. When I play tennis, I don't hear anything, any of that. I am solely focused on the task at hand, which is to somehow get that ball over the net and do it as efficiently as I can. So tennis just plays a big role in my life. It's not because I have any aspirations to, you know, reaching the U.S. Open anytime soon, because, you know, I think it's
not with an attitude like that.
I think it's safe to say that I've, you know, not in this lifetime. Maybe the next one I'll put an order into, you know, with the person upstairs to come back and have Andy's job next time around. But I play tennis because I love the work. I love the process. I have no aspirations to, you know, becoming a great tennis player. That is nothing to do with that. It's more of what it brings to me, the balance that it brings in my daily life, and it does that because I have to work at it, and it's totally engaging. It gives me so much.
I want to tell a story and brag on you for a second, because there are those moments where you watch people who have been at the top of their field, and the way that they interact, the way that they go about their jobs, and when you have like a first person view of it, sometimes you realize what you're not doing well enough. So I run a charitable foundation in Austin, Texas called the Andy Roddick Foundation. Bring up that bid page after this, by the way. And we've had unbelievable performers over the years. You know, Elton John, Seal, and many, many more. And he was gracious enough to come play for us in 2019. And listen, I can't speak for everyone, but it is not an easy thing to give up your life for a couple of days, travel for someone else's passion. Right? And I realized how potent this was, even more so 6 months after it happened. To see someone who is a pro, who is committed every single night, could have been every option. We'd raised the money, you go on. And I'm telling you, I was sitting here going, I'm not doing enough. I'm not enough. Performed, goes into the crowd. I think you hugged 50% of the people that were there. Then we go into 2020, I look back, I'm like, remember the time he hugged 50% of the people in that room? But then afterwards, every single person that came up to you, it was intentional attention. It wasn't because that's what had to be done. It's because that's the way you process those interactions. And I left that going, I could probably be better at all of that stuff, be a little bit more intentional, be a little bit more present. It was inspiring for me. So as you watch the people you call superheroes on the tennis court, that's the way that I saw you that night. At that point, I feel like that was probably closer to the beginning of our friendship. And to see that, I couldn't believe in every single person who we've been spoiled by choice, luckily, with raising money through music for our foundation. To a person, I got more calls the next day saying, talk about someone going above and beyond, right? You promised me music, you didn't promise me full self, and so I just want to say thank you. It was unbelievably gracious, and it made me want to be better.
Thank you, brother.
I also told Seal when we were going, I was like, we're going to go on, we'll open the show, we'll do a couple of things, we'll make some notes, and then we're probably going to eventually get to some Q&A with the crowd. So if you want us to let you go, before that, he goes, I don't get to do the Q&A? I said, I don't know, you can if you want to, but I'm certainly sensitive to your time. We have a cool thing that we've been running. There's an active auction going right now, and what it is, and it's for the same foundation that Seal was so generous with his time. The short version is any one of you could hit on Arthur Ashe Stadium with me. in October. We're basically running that. I get run of show for the day. The USTA is generous enough to give me a couple days a year where I can try to use that iconic venue for good. Mike, can you hit our listeners with the details?
Yes. Yeah, so if you go to ashclinic.givesmart.com, you can register and place your bid. The bids are cruising in. We've been doing it for a couple weeks now, and it'll be for either October 18th or October 19th. And Andy's got some pretty great stuff lined up for it, and it's somebody that recently, for the first time, went to ASH. It's pretty incredible.
We got to talk about that shit for 1 second, too.
Your new bestie?
Just, oh, man, that was a moment. But also, it's pretty fun. You can put a group together, and hopefully there's more people that listen to this. It might be like you plus 7 people listening to this, but it's a pretty great walk, locker rooms, and you do that like walk down the hallway after the interviews and the whole thing. It's a pretty fun day. So if you're interested, if you know someone else who's interested, please advocate for us. It's a great experience. I will give as much energy for that day as Seal gave to us for that night. I absolutely promise you. Mike, I do want to get your opinion on something. So this spoiled brat over here, so not a background in tennis, right? NFL Network, UFC, a lot of sports documentaries. Great producer, just
no tennis,
just zero in tennis.
Zero.
Like we start the first show, and I almost I got like scared and got into cold sweats because he mentioned the event Laver Cup, and I'm like,
still learning.
No, that's Rod Laver, and it's his cup. Like, put some respect on that name.
Thank you for teaching me.
Sorry. Okay, so this guy goes. He's at the U.S. Open for the first time. We do a live show a week ago on site. The foundation that we're talking about, the USTA, recognized it and honored it on night 1, which was an amazing night. I didn't know all about this gala that they put on. I had never been to the President's Suite at the U.S. Open before. So this guy, so I was going to go solo. Brooke was bringing our wonderful children up. That night, they got delayed. I think I'm like solo. Mike, a couple days before, I'm like, hey, if you want to come up to this thing, we had a show the next day. I was, so we can figure it out. I was
like, do I need a
You're
tie?
You're such a jerk. Like,
do I need a tie?
Everyone in this room is about to hate you for what I'm about to say.
It's pretty great.
He comes in, first match he's ever watched live at the U.S. Open, first row. First row
of the president's box,
and people, and we're walking in, and people are like, "Oh, the podcast! Oh, hey, producer Mike." I'm like, I had to play so long for people to know my name in this venue.
He had never been in the president's box before. We both have been in there the exact same amount of times.
Yeah, shut up, man. Like it's just so, and then it's like all these people coming up to us. So he ends up watching Novak Djokovic from the first row, the first night of his life, and who comes between matches. So Sloane loses. We're in this area. It's like all sorts of like amazingly talented and fascinating people. Who comes to us between matches and comes up and casually goes, hey guys, I'd introduced myself to him, and it was like the first time I met you, I felt like I was gonna vomit. I was so intimidated. So I'd met this person earlier. He comes up to me, he goes, oh, my wife left me. Do you guys mind if I sit with you? He spends 2 hours watching the single greatest resume in men's tennis history next to Lin-Manuel Miranda. On
really
night
disappointing.
One
pretty normal
of the U.S. Open.
Normal.
What a jerk.
Just a normal Monday.
Quit now.
Yeah, just quit now.
Headed to the U.S. Open this year? Be sure to ace the U.S. Open with Chase. As proud sponsor of the U.S. Open, Chase helps tennis fans make the most of their Grand Slam tournament experience with exclusive benefits and perks like customer-exclusive Chase Lounge and Chase Terrace, complimentary mobile charger for fans, and more. Head to chase.com/US Open for more info. What do we have? We have our friends at Oli-pop. Do we have some?
Are you gonna stick around?
Trivia?
You gonna hang out?
Sure. I mean,
it's up to you. Who? I mean, does anyone? We have. That'd be good, right?
All right. So we're gonna do a new segment. It's gonna be the Oli-pop quiz.
Oh.
Yes, and we have some special prize. Sean's gonna bring. This is Techie Sean, everybody. Thank you.
What is that Oli-pop? Is it the soda?
Look at how professional we are. Look at this.
Look at this. They sent us this.
Ooh, okay.
And inside of that, I don't know if you guys can tell, there's a secret prize in there. I'm not sure what they are. I'm new to tennis.
Yeah, these are called rackets.
Okay, those are rackets. Okay. So those are, what are those, Andy?
Good, right?
These are the new Wilson shifts. So I used one racket for a long time. I recently switched for the first time in a long time and obsessed. I went through this like I'd never been through like a full play test where they bring you 12 rackets. We actually have a YouTube thing documented. It was like a kid in a candy store. But this is now what I play with. And so what do we got?
So we have a little U.S. Open trivia questions.
Okay.
John's going to be our moderator. Do you have it?
Let me see. I think I got these on my phone here. All right. These are trivia questions.
Hold on. Don't ask me
Tell
yet.
them the terms and conditions.
So what we're going to do, terms and conditions, on the front of everybody's chair, there's a number, right? There's a little blue piece of tape.
You get a
There's
car,
number.
you get a car,
Yeah,
you get a car.
You get a car. We are going to pull a number out of here, and it's going to be you versus Andy in an A or B trivia question. If you beat Andy, you get a racket. If you tie Andy, you get a racket. If you lose to Andy, you get an Oli-pop. And then we pick another number, and that person gets a racket. So the whole room's going to be rooting against you. It's going to be wonderful.
Seal has, what's the number next to Stevie there? 9? Seal's 9.
All right.
He's in.
Seal's 9.
He's in.
He's in?
Yeah.
You
Okay.
get a racket?
Okay, all right. And so Andy will write down his result first. It's A or
Okay,
B.
just so we're
answer.
clear.
Yeah. And then you're going to tell us yours. Sophie is social Sophie around hers. She'll have the microphone. She'll bring it to you. Okay. Who is seat number 39?
Okay.
Oh,
man.
no.
That's Jon. That's
Dude,
Wertheim's
no,
wife.
that's
Fix
not
is
fair.
in.
This is off to a horrible start.
Fix
He
is
can't play
in.
tennis now anyway.
Get out
All
of
right.
here.
Fraud.
That's bizarre.
Get out of here.
119.
119.
There's that many people in here?
No. They were supposed to come.
This is horrible.
This is getting off to. This will get edited.
33.
33.
33.
Yeah,
All right.
here we go.
All right. Sophie right there. Sophie's going to walk in. Stand up for us, please, sir. Can you stand up?
I don't know why I came this way.
All right. John's going to ask you the trivia question, A or B.
All right. This is a history category.
Like weirdly nervous.
What came first? The first U.S. Open, then known as the U.S. National Championship, or the Brooklyn Bridge? What came first?
The Brooklyn Bridge.
All right.
I mean, it's not the U.S. Open. It's just like it was just some dudes playing a thing. What year did that happen? I mean, I know this one's like 1927. I don't know. Okay, the sport was invented in 18. Okay, I got my answer. I'm same answer.
Okay, same answer.
Yeah.
Wow, you're both wrong.
Oh, really?
What is it?
Brooklyn Bridge, 1883, the U.S. Open / U.S. National Championship, played in Newport, Rhode Island, 1881.
Ooh.
Take a racket.
Get a racket.
All right.
All right, next one.
No idea.
Comes with a warning. All right.
Seat 18.
18.
18.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Sophie, you can just stay over here. She gets so nervous. She's great at social media, scared of cameras.
I keep going the weirdest ways to get to everything. Thank you.
All right, you ready? Both of you. Who was the first qualifier ever to win a major? Was it A, Goran Ivanisevic, 2001 Wimbledon, or Emma Raducanu,
Read it
3
again.
years ago?
Read it again. The first.
First qualifier ever to win a major.
All right.
A, Goran Ivanisevic.
I know the answer to that.
B, Emma Raducanu.
In for the win.
You're allowed to phone into Seal for help.
I'm going to go with A.
Which was that?
Goran Ivanisevic.
No, that's wrong. It was Emma Raducanu.
It was Emma Raducanu.
Yeah.
Damn.
Sorry. All right, so let's see what number actually gets the racket.
You had Raducanu, right?
All right.
Number 29 gets the
Go ahead.
racket.
All right.
Who's number 29?
Okay.
You get the racket.
In fact, they were both qualifiers in that final.
All right, next one. We only got a few more.
Unseated, but she got in.
Oh, you're good.
Yeah.
you're good.
Yeah.
Wait, we have a.
That was a
Yeah,
trick
yeah,
question though,
we
because
grab it. Shall we grab a
Ivanisevic
racket?
won as a wild card
Hey, we have
Yes.
and not a
yeah,
qualifier. That's why I asked
Exactly.
what the deal was.
What?
Yeah, she got it.
Yeah, she gets the racket.
Yeah, right. No. This woman is 29.
I just want to give away
Yeah,
rackets.
she gets the
like,
racket.
you know.
Oh.
All right, who's 103?
Hey.
Okay.
Anybody 103?
Oli-pop
103. 71.
Here we go.
Yeah, there we go.
71.
We should have put some Jeopardy
All right.
music on.
We got
Yeah.
We had a 16-year-old win her first match the other day. She's not the right answer. So who was the youngest player ever to win a match at the U.S. Open? Was it Pete Sampras or Mary Jo Fernandez?
Oh, easy.
A, Pete Sampras. B, Mary Jo Fernandez.
B.
Take the racket. Take the racket.
Wow.
Hey, go get it. Wait here.
Seat number 5.
2 more. I have a feeling I'm going to
That's
give these
you?
away
All right.
regardless.
All right, right here. Sophie, over here.
Oh, man. This is an interesting one.
You can always phone your friend Seal for the answer if you'd like to. You can go with his answer.
Can you just answer wrong for me so I can have the racket?
Probably. Yeah, I could probably figure that out. Yeah, I'm shameless.
Hey, just to be clear, I didn't write this. No. After what jazz artist is the U.S. Open's second biggest court name? Is it A, Kenny G. Court, or B, Louis Armstrong?
Oh, whoa.
Seal, can you answer this, please? Can you answer it?
Oh, she's phoning in Seal.
Can I answer? Louis
Yeah.
Armstrong.
You're
What do you got?
All right, Seal, way to go.
Armstrong Stadium.
Way to go.
Yeah,
Way to go.
Armstrong,
Way to
there
go.
we go.
Way to go. Way to go.
All right, last one.
Can you
Hey, does anyone?
can you imagine
Kenny G. Court.
Yeah.
if it was Kenny G Stadium?
No disrespect or anything, but like,
That'd be amazing. That'd be
For
amazing.
the record, Louis
They
Armstrong
wouldn't.
was a really good tennis player. That's why they named the court after him. No.
73.
He lived in Queens. All right,
Last
73.
question. 73.
Oh, this is a good one.
Okay.
Okay. Who was the last man under 6 feet to win the U.S. Open men's singles title? Is it A, Andre Agassi, B, Leighton Hewitt?
ooh.
That's a good one.
Leighton Hewitt.
Bang! That's
Boom.
got to be the answer. What precocious young player threw an absolute fit to throw away a quarterfinal match against Leighton Hewitt in that 2001 tournament?
Who was that?
Oh, B.
That's right.
You win.
That's right. It was your boy. Gave it away. There you go. That's what we're doing. Thank you, Oli-pop quiz. Thank you. Props to Wilson for providing the rackets.
We have time for some Q&A.
Yeah, let's do it.
You guys wanna do some
Let's get a couple
Q&A?
questions. Yeah,
That'd be good?
Absolutely.
Okay. Sophie, you're still on deck.
All right.
She's
Raise your
to-
hand and
she's
she'll
trying to
choose
get
you.
out of it.
All right, right here. We got 2 in the front.
Front row.
Hi. First off, just like it's crazy to kind of like meet your idols. So Andy, just awesome to have you back in tennis, kind of with the podcast.
Cheers. Thank you.
And then question. With tennis and also curious in other industries as well, you have your highs and your wins, but you also have your fair amount of losses or learning opportunities. I'm curious how you kind of work through those, and then in that specific industry, in tennis and in music, and then how you overcome them and how you apply that maybe to other aspects of your life.
All right, I'll take the lead. And one, I want to give you props for. I always say that a sign of like when I get really curious about someone is not if they make a bunch of statements, but the way they ask questions. And the fact that you said losses or learning opportunities I thought it was brilliant. I thought that was a great way to frame a question. So props for that. I love that. I don't know. I always viewed it, and I failed, famously on big stages. And by failed, I mean tried my best, played my best, and lost. For me, I took a lot of pride in getting back to the work. I can work through, being sad, having pain. You certainly deal with it, but that shouldn't stop me from being at the track the next Wednesday after an appropriate amount of time. Now, I didn't return after I lost the 2009 Wimbledon final. It was actually, it's weird how you kind of, I think, heal in different ways. It was not far from here. I was here with Brooke, and walking through the streets of New York, and it was a guy doing construction. It was a guy who was, you'd walk in and get a smoothie somewhere. You were walking down the street, and it was some person walking their dog, or it was something else. And it was the most I'd ever gotten the sentiment of like, oh, Andy, we were there with you. I'm so like, it was very conversational, very familiar, and I get chills thinking about it. But from that moment forward, even with my toughest moment, my relationship with tennis fandom was completely different, and it was an absolute. I always appreciated it, but it just took on a different tone. It took on what felt like a different intent. I pulled out of 2 tournaments after that because I just wasn't ready. I walked out on a Tuesday night in Washington a month later, and normally early rounds in tournaments, it's like, hit or miss, and it was packed house. It was a packed house from then until, I stopped playing, and I often wonder, had that gone my way, if the reaction would have been the same. So one, it was, I think, I always talk about players' superpowers, right? The ability to create speed like a Rafa, the ability of Novak to switch directions and get the pattern he wants. Mine was going to work, simply. I wasn't going to miss being up at 7:30 on a track, maybe a little bit out of insecurity because I knew that there was someone out there who was a better tennis player, so I had to trim the margin. So the disappointment never got in the way of getting through your reps, getting through your processes. And honestly, I don't know if my relationship with the tennis world would have finished as healthy as it did had I actually won that match. I don't know about you. I don't know if there's any. I mean, I think you should answer that question as well, Seal, who's on our show right now.
So your question was, how do you deal with the
losses or learning opportunities?
Yeah.
Well, as Andy pointed out, I think there is no greater teacher than the benefit of time. When you look back, I always think, okay, if I look back at my career now, I think to myself, well, what are the moments that stand out to me? What are my most fond moments? What are the memorable ones? It's never been, winning Grammys or some kind of, accolade or a #1 or something. It's never, those are not the things that mean the most to me. The things that mean the most to me are the times where I was going through, adversity. My third album, for example, a very, very difficult album emotionally to make because of a series of things which I won't bore you with. But when I look at how I transcended through those things, that's what gives me the greatest pleasure, and it also makes me understand that it's not about what it's gonna be, it's what it is right now. It's the process. The process is the most important part of it all, the journey, basically. And when my time comes, none of the things that I want to have, my final memories, are going to be the things that I was able to transcend, the difficult times, because that's kind of what has led to this moment right now. I'm most proud of that which I was able to transcend, rather than the things that the trophies or anything like that.
Yeah, and I'll bookend that. So I played 2 finals here. One went my way, one didn't. The one that didn't, those 2 weeks, I appreciated more than I don't want to say I appreciate more. Meant more to me. It meant more to me in the moment, in the round of 16, quarters, semis, because that year up to that point had been a dumpster fire. Like, it had been the worst ever. So it was almost like new joy. I'd won everything coming in to when I won this tournament. 06, I'd lost everything. I'd lost to this young kid that no one could believe I lost to at Wimbledon in the 3rd round, named Andy Murray. He ended up being okay. But I took more joy, I think, from those wins than when it was maybe expected. Anyways, thank you for the question.
Yeah, great question.
Hi, guys. My name's Adam, and I want to thank you all for producing the show. Mike, John, Andy, and also today, Seal. Keep up the good work. But my question, I did a little research for it. It's a question about fame, and I saw that you guys were both probably the top 300 most famous people in the world, or at some point. And sorry.
Accurate for Andy. Accurate for Andy.
I don't know what you took away from that. I took away
a lot of negativity.
I need to change my business card. Is what I need to do.
You guys have achieved more fame than any of us could ever imagine.
I like how you softened the blow, though. That was because, in other words, we're not.
Okay.
Were you disappointed with Top 300? I was
totally
thrilled.
disappointed.
You are? Oh, shit. I was like, that's the difference between me and you. I was like, go. Anyway, sorry to interrupt.
No, but I calculated it, and you guys you're not in the top 1% of fame, not in the top 0.1%, but you're in the top 0.0000037% of fame based on the world population.
Jeez.
Oh, there you go.
You do your
So,
research.
I wanted to see kind of what
Perspective.
thoughts do you have about someone who hasn't achieved or who has not been at that level of famous, kind of what maybe the pros and cons were, or what's that? I mean, I'm just curious to hear more about what that was like,
Well-
or what that's like for you.
Well, one thing that I think it needs to be, thank you for like even thinking about anything to do with this show and question. I appreciate you even giving us the time that question took. One, let's never confuse fame with success. Right? Let's never do that. We just, tennis is on TV. It's no different. The processes and everything he's touching on is not different, right? There's ambition. You go, you fall, you get back up again. I'm curious to hear your perspective. For me, it was a weird thing where at 18, especially in tennis, it's a very kind of small bubble, and you break out as an American in a tournament like this. It was literally in the States, 1 week could do anything, take the subway to the courts, and then the next week it was the Hewitt match we had talked about, and I'd played on Ash 4 nights in a row. And so it turned very quickly, and then it was kind of something that I was used to, but it kind of ebbs and flows. I don't remember peak much because I think there was this constant distraction that was my job, and it was kind of just part of the job. So I think that was kind of compartmentalized, and then you go away. I wasn't around tennis for 8 or 10 years, and then I come back to it, and producer Mike is famous, so it can't be that hard. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this.
So, your question is what has been my personal journey in dealing with fame? Is that your question?
Yeah, kind of what it's been like, I guess.
What it's been like? The pros and cons. Well, it's interesting because if you look at the concept of fame, like, what is the real difference, other than the fact that I sing and I don't know what you do for a living, but other than that, like, what is the real difference between you and me? And if you kind of look at fame from that perspective, it's an utterly ridiculous concept. I mean, it's absurd. 1 minute I was this kind of working class boy from Northwest London, and the next minute, literally, and I had what the journalists used to refer to as meteoric success. My rise was relatively quick, and next minute I was a kind of household name. But as far as I was concerned, I hadn't changed, and so that can be quite destabilizing. And when you hear of famous people or young famous people going off the deep end, for me at least, it's really easy to understand how that happens, because you yourself haven't changed so much, but then all of a sudden you're famous. And there's that old expression, that old saying, be careful of what you want, you might get it. Well, that kind of happened to me. Now, my saving grace was that I was relatively older when it happened.
That's what I wanted to know about.
I was 27, so I'd seen a kind of fair bit of life. Not too much, but a fair bit. And I was able to therefore have some perspective. And so, I often liken it to being put on a skateboard for the very first time on an incline. Think of the first time you ever stood on a skateboard. And, you're just frightened for all dear life that you're going to fall off, right? And you're really unstable, right? But then you kind of figure out, if I just lean this way, I see it does. And fame's a little bit like that. And I go back to what Andy was saying. Fame and success, they're two completely different things. But we are talking about fame and the absurdity of fame. you learn to kind of navigate your way around it. But on the plus side of that, you talk about the pros. It has given me the most amazing life, incredible life, things that dreams are made of, situations and opportunities that I would never have believed possible. To some degree, one could argue that it's given me happiness, and it's certainly contributed to it, whilst it's not at the core of it, but it's contributed to it. But I think, in summary, to answer your question, is I never really lost sight of who I was. Whilst fame is great and it is a part of my life, it doesn't define me. Seal the musician or the singer or the pop star, rock star, whatever. It's something that I do. It's not who I am. It's not essentially who I am. It's something that I do. And when I go home, my kids don't care about that. They care about Dad. My missus, she doesn't care. Well, she does, but she doesn't really. She cares about who I am as a person. And so I think surrounding yourself with people who are essentially a mirror, who will reflect you.
That's a good way to put it.
Is important.
I like that. We have this conversation a lot, and general feeling, having seen, sports world, little glimpses into people like the man to my left. I think whether it's fame or whether it's different types of successes, whether it's financial or whatever it may be, I don't know that it changes a lot of people. I think a lot of times it just exaggerates what's always been there, good or bad. Anyways, we'll move on.
100%.
You think that?
Yeah, 100%.
But let's. We have time for a couple more questions.
Straight behind you, sir.
One here and then one. Why don't you take the? Whatever. There's one closer to you, and then we can go to the. We'll get you. You'll finish this up. Thank you for that question. Appreciate you.
So Naomi Osaka made a little bit of a splash with her outfit this week. I was wondering, this is a question for all of you.
Well, thank goodness I get to talk about fashion.
I was wondering if
you have come to the right place.
If you have a favorite outfit that you've ever worn, particularly maybe a visor, and if you have a favorite outfit of all time that anybody has worn on a tennis court.
I appreciate you. I rarely cared. There would basically be that you'd be presented stuff. I certainly have ones I regret. The visor, I kind of, here's you want some honesty here? All right, you ready? All right. So the visor, I often wonder, and Gilbert got rid of that. He had this whole thing, like, you can't play in a bar, whatever, Brad. So anyways, he did that thing. I often wonder if I would have more hair if I kept the visor. That's what I wonder. That's what I wonder all the time. And I wish I could go back and run that experiment. What I should have done is immediately after Brad and I split up, just to be like really passive aggressive, is bring it back. That's what I should have done. But listen, they show you slides of what you might wear, and I didn't put a lot of thought into it. Honestly, I don't know that I ever vetoed anything. They wanted this sleeveless. I'm like, that's not me. Like, I'm not gonna. I don't want to do that. Probably if I, was Rafa, I probably would have been into it, like he was. But I haven't really cared. Do you any regrets over there, my friend?
Of a few outfits that I've. Oh
Give us because entertainment regrets is like risk. Like that's a different thing.
Yeah,
give us the
there have been some.
Give us the
ones.
biggest regret and describe it.
Well, when I was kind of starting out, not when I became the SEAL that people are aware of, but when I started out in bars, I used to wear kind of like
I don't.
Not.
So you can't go like this.
I
don't know. I don't know.
Not quite Daisy Dukes, but like some like really questionable shorts, and I wish. Yeah, and that's never, you know,
Those
unless
are
you're George Michael. And
those
Wham,
are
that's
those are
never a
known
good
around
thing.
these parts as the Wertheims.
Who's your sponsor back then? Have a word with them.
That's
Oh,
funny.
they were
Good
really
question.
bad.
All right, we had one more in the back that I promised. Sophie,
one more in the back.
lady in the back where you were heading before I had you detour.
I see. Okay.
She has a little helper with her. Seal, will we be able to find those on the internet? Those pictures?
No.
Maybe eBay?
I've gone to great lengths.
I'm gonna Google the shit out
I
of
can't
it.
wait.
I'll
No,
just tell you
you
that
won't
right.
find them.
I will.
Okay. Hi. Thank
Hi.
you all so much for being here.
Cheers,
This is
thank you.
wonderful. My question was less serious, but so you were talking about Federer and Djokovic in the locker room.
Yep.
What were you doing? What was going on in your head? What was your breath?
Trying not to vomit. I was, and my wife will attest to this. She'll be nodding in the front row. I was difficult on game days. I every single match that I played, I could be playing a second round in Memphis, a tournament that I've won 2 times, conditions I like, playing someone who qualified. And my mind was, if this guy catches a head of steam, I could be in trouble tonight. Like I worked backwards from like worst case scenario. So I was in control, but very angsty from the moment I woke up. I didn't want to talk a lot. It wasn't happy-go-lucky. It wasn't an easy process throughout the day. If I had to play at night, I barely walked around through the day. It was a hard thing. I knew, you know, I struggled. Like I was jealous of, and I always tell the story. I have no past just wanting to have won 2 more points at one tournament. I don't have a lot of regrets. I don't envy people for their successes. I'm more than happy that these 3 have won all of the tournaments that they've won, where I was very jealous and am still jealous of Roger, because he was the guy that I played most in the biggest matches, just because we were good on the same surfaces at the same time, was his ease of operation. It drove me crazy, because I could see him on the Saturday before Grand Slam losing to some chucker on a practice court, and I walked by and he was smiling, laughing. I felt like I had to play well on a Saturday in practice to play well on a Monday in the event. So I was kind of, you know, to myself, friendly enough I could fake it. I wasn't gonna like project that, you know, angst on a hello on the way by. But it was a rocky experience. And that's probably one of the reasons why I stopped earlier than most. I said I don't know that I retired from tennis, but I think I retired from waiting around. But I don't know. What's your vibe before?
You know,
you go on?
Such an interesting point you raise about Roger and how that was the thing that. It wasn't so much, you know, the championships that he had won, you know, or you know, his brilliant tennis, but it was his temperament that drove you nuts.
No, it didn't drive me nuts. I was jealous of it. I was honestly jealous, like the hair flip and then walk out for a Wimbledon final. I'm going, oh my God, I've been like choking down food since like 8 a.m. I can barely get through the meal.
Well, when I think about, or when anyone thinks about Roger, if you think back to Federer, which isn't too difficult because it's, you know, fairly recent, but if you were to choose one word that would describe him, in general, you know, his game, what would that word be? I'm curious. Pardon? Effortless, okay. Relaxed. Anyone else? Pardon? Elegance.
Yeah.
Okay. It's interesting you use all those words, right? Because mine would be pretty much the same as what you're saying, but I would probably choose the word balance. Like, think of one match where you ever saw Roger look unbalanced. I've seen him, you know, stretch for a point, you know, and work really hard for a point. But he always manages to look centered and balanced.
Super
right?
annoying.
It is annoying, but it's fascinating. One time, he came to a show of mine. I'll never forget this. He came to a show of mine in London. We were playing at Hammersmith. And, you know, I went and met him because it was like my idol, you know, one of my idols coming to the show. I went and met him at the stage door with his family. And I'll never forget it. I mean, I have to get up for a bit, so I'll try not to. So I remember him walking, right? And he sort of walked in like this. and you know, he walked around and everything, and he just looked so balanced. So the point I'm trying to make is that thing that you see on the tennis court, that's not just him on the tennis court, that is his life. And so my preparation is, I guess I try to be like that on gig days, when I'm working, and just in life in general. I'm at best, put it that way, when I have that same balance in movement, not getting too high or too low in dealing with situations. And I find that particularly when I'm touring and I have that attitude, it helps a lot. And just to have balance, overall balance in life.
I'll tell you, so I interviewed Roger the year after I retired, and we had never really talked tennis before. Like we have a great relationship. I'd give him a kidney, right? We've always kind of gotten along. I can speak for myself, but I strong suspicion that there's a strong mutual respect of shared history there. But I got to interview him, and so the first time we actually got into matches and, you know, our specific history and everything else, I asked him the same thing. I'm like, there's this, you know, at that point he was considered, you know, the greatest, and there wasn't a lot of doubt about it. And I said, the other people, your contemporaries, it's like, you know, Michael Jordan broke a teammate's nose in practice, right? He will step on like your carcass to score the next basket. Do you have it? Is it in there? He said, yeah. And he said, one of the things that like is weird is everyone says these kind of gentle words, but there is a lot of work that goes into looking that gentle, kind of, and, you know, exuding that. But I asked him a question, and his answer was, I'll get it exactly wrong, but I said, is that fire in you? He goes, yeah, but the one thing that I've never understood, and at this point I was like, it blew my mind and it made so much sense, and I was so mad at him. And I said, he goes, yeah, I always hear all these all of you say, like, I hate to lose, I hate to lose, I hate to lose, I hate to lose. And he goes, I genuinely think that I enjoy winning more than I hate losing. And I had no idea what he was talking about. I had no clue. And it was just this simple thing. And I don't think you can coach that. I don't know how
that's a great way of
ever make someone
winning more than I
enjoy.
losing.
I jump, and it was the opposite of me. He goes, I jump up 3 days later after, and I rise out of, it's still in me. I check to the next thing. Like I what's the next stress point. And that's what made me jealous about him, like that kind of thing. And a lot of people work backwards, and they need the friction. And, you know, there are a lot of great players who create friction and then overcome it. And they're geniuses in their own way. But that was, so that was like, that blew my mind and pissed me off kind of all at the same time. Listen, this has been a great night. I hope that you all have appreciated our guest spending some time with us. To put it in tennis terms, a true gentleman and a champion on and off the court. Seal, love you, brother. Thank you so much.
Thanks for the opportunity. It's been great. Thank you
for being here tonight. As always, round of applause for producer Mike. My job is easy. I come here, I tell you what I see, and I tell you about my past experience. I have no idea how anything else works. I can barely turn a phone on and off.
It's a good team.
It's a good team. We literally, there's a direct line where I need him, and then it's like, go get him, and then it's back in. So appreciate you. Jon Wertheim, the best journalist in tennis. Feel lucky and honored that you said yes to this. So much value added. Social Sophie, Techie Sean, everyone else involved with the show. We appreciate our team. We have the best team. And this has been served, brought to you by Chase. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks.